Derrick hated springtime. He hated the constant rainfall that vacillated between heavy downpours and a drizzle. He, however, enjoyed that the weather gave him an excuse to sit in his office all day and smoke. Sadly, he received a call that he had to answer based on the severity of the situation, snatching him from the comfort of his office. With a coffee in one hand and the other shielding his eyes, he sprinted across the parking lot of the Seattle Police Department to his cruiser. He cussed as he settled into his car and shut the door, soaking wet. His windbreaker did little to prevent him from getting drenched. This better be worth his time. Pulling out of the parking lot, he fumbled in his jacket pocket for a cigarette pack. His phone began to ring. It was Darcy. "Hey, hon, how are you?" "I'm fine, Dad." He could hear her fumbling through some things in the background. "Shit weather, huh? It's been raining for hours now. I swear God's trying to wipe us out again." He chuckled as he said this, lighting the cigarette as he approached the intersection. It was a red light, so he turned on his siren and drove past it. "Dad, you shouldn't joke about stuff like that." He rolled his eyes. He was slightly amused at how prudish she was. He loved her, but he wished she'd loosen up a little or she'd grow up to be just like her mother. "Oh shit, my bad." He took a sip of his coffee and winced. It tasted god-awful, just how he liked it. "How's prep for college going?" "It's fine, Dad. I'm just sorting some boxes out. Have you spoken to Mom?" He took a drag of his cigarette. "What about?" "It's her birthday. I figured you'd forgotten, so I thought I'd remind you." "Oh shit? That's today?" "Language, Dad." She sounded exasperated. That's one of the many things she and her mother had in common. They didn't like that he cussed, or that he drank, or that he smoked, or that he wasn't the most upright man in the world. "Oh, sorry. Sure. I'll call her later. I can't right now, though. I got a call, so I'm headed there." He hoped he was convincing enough, not just to her, but to himself. Truth is, he hadn't really spoken to Julie since the divorce. Their interactions didn't go beyond the routine seasonal greeting cards and the stifled pleasantries when he went to get Darcy for their court-sanctioned weekends together, and even those had become fewer as Darcy grew older. Her high school graduation and subsequent dinner was the most time they had spent in the same space since the divorce, and he would put only death above that experience. They went to the fancy restaurant downtown, and Darcy and her boyfriend, along with his family, were present. Julie was also there, and so was her new boyfriend, Ted. Ted was better than Derrick in every aspect. He was very handsome, tall, muscular, had a full head of hair, and was immensely wealthy. The complete antithesis of Derrick. He had never felt more emasculated in his life. He noticed how well Julie looked. He also saw how much she loved Ted, and it made him physically ill. He still loved Julie and knew she loved him, or at least cared about him. Her glances at him were enough evidence, full of yearning and concern. She tried to make small talk and asked how he was, and he said the same thing he always did. He told her he was fine, but honestly, he wasn't. He loved her still, and he was dying inside. He never understood why she left. Sure, he was crass and uncouth. He smoked and drank and did every other thing that went against her beliefs, but he was the same man she fell in love with before her religious awakening. He promised he'd change, and he tried, but being a cop in a city like Seattle, she couldn't blame him for being a nihilist who didn't believe in a God. He wouldn't believe that any God would let the evils he came across every day happen. "Dad?" She sensed his uncertainty. "Please call her for me. She'd love it. It would mean the world to her. You know she still feels guilty for leaving. She tells me every day that she wishes things were different. She feels guilty because she knows she hurt you and she knows you're still hurting." He was holding back his emotions. Fuck, she was so smart, his little girl. "I'll call her." "Thanks, Dad." "You got it, sweetheart. So when are you leaving for college? Is Ted taking you?" "Yeah. I'm leaving this weekend." "Oh, wow. All right. Maybe I'll take my leave and come spend a week with you in your dorm." "You, no," she chuckled. He missed his baby girl, and his wife too. He was nearing the apartment building and said his farewells to her. There were several police vehicles parked at the base of the building. He got out of the car with his coffee in hand and stomped out his cigarette. "Goldstein, this better be good. I thought you'd want to see this. It's the manner of death." Goldstein led the way into the dilapidated apartment building, and he explained as they walked up the narrow stairwell. He was a college student living with his mom. The mother called when she heard him screaming in the bathroom. He'd locked himself in and wasn't responding coherently to her questions. She said he had complained about feeling ill earlier today. By the time we got here and broke the door in, he was dead. Forensics have had a good look at him, and they can't seem to figure out what happened to him. There was unexplained internal trauma and hemorrhaging. No apparent cause, he just died. They had gotten to the doorway of the apartment. Derrick pushed the partially closed door open and walked into the apartment, past the living room full of officers into the bathroom. There, lying face down, was the body, ghost, pale. He squatted down next to the body, properly observing the corpse. The veins on the corpse had an odd green tint to them. He did a final scan of the scene and then delegated the closing of the crime scene to Officer Goldstein. As he left the building, he called Julie. "Hey Julie, it's Derrick. Happy birthday. Hope Ted's got something special planned for today." He cringed at how forced it all sounded. She chuckled weakly. "Aw gee, thanks Derrick. Ted and I are under the weather, so I'm afraid he can't do much for me today." He gave his condolences and wished them a speedy recovery. They said their goodbyes and he ended the call. As he drove back to the police department, he turned on his radio and drank from his cup of coffee. The crackle of a police radio static cleared, and a voice laden with urgency filled his car. "Attention all units. Be advised of multiple sudden deaths reported in the downtown area. Details have been sent to your MDTs. Exercise caution and follow health protocols. Dispatch out." He immediately checked his MDT for the report. Multiple residents were found deceased under unexplained circumstances. Symptoms reported include severe internal trauma and unexplained hemorrhaging. Exercise extreme caution. Wear PPE if available, and maintain a safe distance. He started to panic. What the fuck is going on? He drove towards Julie's home. He remembered driving the same routes in the past with dread, a dread of her judgment and disapproval. However, this fear he felt was much worse. He saw the police squad cars in the driveway and his heart sank. He hadn't turned off the engine when he leaped out of the car into the rain, running up the driveway into the house. His mind was racing. The body lay on the ground, eyes glazed over. Ted looked dashing even in death, his skin frighteningly pale. He saw Julie bawling in the kitchen and saw Darcy sitting next to her trying to console her, eyes full of tears. He saw the police officer trying to get a statement from her. He could hear on the radio calls for more units at several locations. He stared at Julie. He didn't know what to do. He wanted to hold her, to embrace her. In between her sobs, she told the officer how Ted felt unwell earlier in the day, how he screamed in pain for minutes before dropping to the floor, which triggered her emergency call. He walked towards Ted's body, staring at his already pale white skin. He saw the distinct green of the veins beneath his paleness. His car radio cackled incessantly with calls for backup all over Seattle by dispatch. He couldn't move. He just stared at Ted's body. The world was ending.